Uh, Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here at our fireside chat this Wednesday evening. My name is Aaron. I'm the literary director and dramaturg at New York Theater Workshop, and we are so happy to be broadcasting this conversation, this studio visit with Thaddeus from Zoom and simultaneously live streaming it on Facebook. We're so happy to have you all here. I see people, names you recognize from near and far. This fireside chat and all of our virtual programming is free and available to the entire New York Theater Workshop community, near and far. If you're in a position to support our work, we hope that you will consider doing so. You'll find a link to donate in the chat if you're on Zoom, and in the comments if you're tuning in on Facebook Live. We are going to hear from Thaddeus and chat for 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes, and then we'll open up to Q&A for the last 15 to 20 minutes. If you have a question, a technical or logistical question, you can use the Q&A feature on Zoom and the comments on Facebook, and we'll try to get to those as soon as possible. And if you have a question for Thaddeus, please feel free to use the Q&A box on Zoom or the comments on Facebook. And if you see a comment or question that you will respond to, there is an opportunity to like or upvote so we can see which questions are most burning on people's minds. It is now a pleasure to introduce Thaddeus. Thaddeus Phillips is an international theater director, designer, and performer who works internationally. Recent credits include Antropoceno. Ooh, Thaddeus has a fireplace. In Madrid, The Polar Eagle, and Inflatable Space. His work has been presented in theaters and festivals in Russia, Colombia, Italy, the Czech Republic, Australia, Ireland, Spain, Holland, Costa Rica, Hong Kong, Serbia, Canada, Romania, Slovenia, Sweden, Mexico, Norway, and across the United States. We at New York Theater Workshop have been lucky enough to have him for 17 Border Crossings, Red Eye to Havre de Grace, and El Conquistador. Thank you so much for being with us, Thaddeus. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm good. You know, hanging in. Here we are, week 9 here of being shut down. Where are you?
Right now, I'm in the outskirts of Bogota, Colombia. It's probably week 4 or 5.
Okay. And how are you? How are you finding it? How are you doing?
Well, you know, it's all very interesting. I'm in the same experiences as everybody. So, you know, we're in the countryside, so we don't notice the difference of nobody around. So that's good. And I have a 7-year-old, and he doesn't really care. He's having a great time with us. So that's really the most important thing.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And when we started emailing about this, I don't know, probably over a month ago now. And you were excited about an opportunity to talk about your process, to share. I think it sounded like at least then you were feeling generative, and this moment was sparking creativity in you. So what project do you want to talk? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, look, let's start with just a little simple process things that I use.
Great.
And I'll link it to a couple things related to current events, and then go into this new idea. But so just to start clean, I have this completely 70s book called the RSVP Cycles. You know this book?
I don't know.
Okay, so it's by Lawrence Halpern, and he was like an architect, an environmental architect, and it's super 70s. A lot of dancers would know it because Anna Halpern, his wife's a dancer. And but what's so great about it is it presents a very simple process of creativity called the RSVP Cycles. Which, and Roberto Page's early company used these. But what's so nice is when you're, you know, faced with the vastness of creating something out of nothing or something, you know, generative, these are sets of tools. So you have the R stands for a resource, which could be any kind of object, and a score or anything. A score is the script. So in a play, a traditional play, you have your script, which is your score, or in music, you have your score telling you what notes to play.
Yeah.
But the score could be a train schedule. Then you have the V. It doesn't really work because it's for evaluation. Let the E out. And that's evaluating how you could play with the object. You could take a chair and to be or not to be and see how you put that speech together with the chair. And then P is, then you evaluate those things. P is like the performance of it. But what's so nice about these, if anyone wants to look them up, you'll get this great drawing online and information from the book and stuff. But they go in all directions. So you could do an improvisation and then from that draw objects. So you can do it backwards or in the middle, right?
When did you first find this book, Thaddeus? When did you start?
I think because of Robert Lepage's early company was called this. So I got it in a bookstore or stole it from a library. No, I probably didn't steal it from a library. This is from like eBay, I think.
Okay.
So maybe 20 years ago. It's super 70s, but the 70s were kind of the best for, like here they're creating art out of driftwood and 24-hour time-lapse performance. So anyway, let's see here. So then there's the question of reacting to current situations. And so let's look at two little clips of recent things I've done. One is for kids called Polar Eagle. And it was for a theater in Sweden. They wanted us to do a show about, these are two climate-related projects that we're going to talk about real quick. So the Polar Eagle is for kids, and they want to do something about all this. So I was fascinated by the story in Sweden about Andre, who was an explorer who tried to sail in a balloon to the North Pole in 1898, 1899, and he crashed. And in 1925, they found his, frozen bones in the Arctic somewhere, and to film. And I love this story. So we made a story about a little girl who gets a mysterious package with information in Sweden about this flight. And then she takes her own flight to the North Pole because her parents are busy with work and they're moving. It's a big mess. So it's a very short show for kids. But she ends up going to the North Pole, and there she runs into these, we have this whole polar bear sequence. And so when you work with these kinds of cycles, for example, when we got the idea from the news, which is a resource about the polar bears starving, we're trying to, how can we make polar bear suits? And I've been working with inflatables. So we had these polar bear suits made, right? Which are incredibly healthy polar bears. And when the polar bear suits were sent to Sweden where the show was being made, the motors came later. So we started working with them by default without the motors because we didn't have them, right? So they're like totally
deflated suits,
like starving, emancipated, destroyed polar bears. And so we worked that into the performance. And then I want to steal, and I have this great book about stealing, what does it say? Steal like an artist. I don't know, it's this little book you would get at the Strand for $4.98 at the checkout. But so this clip has the coincidence of not getting the batteries in the mail at the time worked into the show, and a total cold cut robbery I did of a thing I'd seen in Edinburgh, where I saw the actors get out of inflatable suits, but it wasn't in any kind of context. So I was like, I want to steal that and put it in context. So and this is kind of a slow meditative scene, but we can, we got time on our hands. When you're going to see the people emerge out of the polar bear suits, because you're not seeing the whole show, it's the girl's parents.
Okay.
And then you have not seen since the whole beginning of the play. And it's like her returning back to her, like any classic Alice in Wonderland story or Return Home. So we can watch that clip.
Great. So this is the first polar clip.
Yeah. Polar Eagle. Can you hear me over this? Yeah, so she's just arrived at the edge of the polar, probably northern Sweden. He discovers these bears. Yeah, the track. Back there, she's got her gnome and her penguin, two animals she really hates, but her parents were like playfully, but they kind of came to life and took her on a little adventure. These actors in the suits are doing a great job because they can't see anything. This is the robbery steal that I did. Where if you see the play, it's really nice. You haven't seen the parents the whole time.
It's flagging a little.
Yeah, that happens. Well, anyway, they just recede, and we can stop the video there. And then she just starts running in place with that hipster music, and all the Arctic gets pulled out underneath her. And then she arrives right back at the garden where she was, and tells her parents. So we can remove that clip.
Great. Thank you, Leo. So you were talking a little bit about this before, but where did the narrative come first in this moment, or did the idea with the suits come first in the moment?
Well, this one, I think the first thing came with, I'd done a couple shows in this theater in Sweden, and there's an island where we kept having to film things. And right on the island is a museum to this guy, Andre, with the balloon. Because all his stuff that was discovered he's from that town. So I always wanted to do something about that. Arctic voyage, and then connected to, climate crisis and stuff. So then, of course, the polar bears came in. So the real trick was how to, put the story of the Arctic explorers together.
Yeah.
With the limited resources of the theater, it's got to be a touring show with like a 2-hour setup for kids.
Yeah.
With only 3 actors. The set, as you saw, there's those 4 poles that just have laundry lines that go around.
Yeah.
And another huge inflatable balloon that they're so excited they're flying over. And actually, it starts as a world down. So you think it's the world, and we project the Earth on it, and they're flying all across the world because the wind's taking them the wrong way. But then when we lift it up, it's a balloon that they're in. And then the gnome is trying to open some tuna with the axe, the writer with it, and pops the balloon, and then they crash on the Arctic. And then she finally gets to plant the Swedish flag where Andre, the explorer, wanted to plant it, but never got a chance to. But then the whole thing melts in front of her. She's lost at sea and finds the polar bears. So it's kind of the way the combo works.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. One of the things that I always love about your work is the way that, as you were just explaining, that the world turns into a balloon, turns into the shifting of the objects. In a way that is both laid bare, it's very obvious what's happening, and also totally magical. And I'm curious about how those images, is there a way those images come to you? How do you build those images as you're thinking of the creation of a piece?
Well, for example, in the one where the balloon, the entire stage fills. Well, first she opens a package, right? So I'll go back one more. They hang the sheets. The parents are hanging the sheets, ignoring her. She gets this weird package from a mailman. It's from her grandmother who just passed, which doesn't make sense. she reads this letter and gets all these artifacts from the journey. But we project the old black and white photographs on the laundry. And what was cool is because we're using that Armenian music, we did a bunch of showings for like 3-year-olds and then 18-year-olds. And the 3 and 5-year-olds, they were so fascinated by these guys who went, exploring and died. And the 18-year-olds were really taken by the relationship between the girl and her grandmother and what happened to the grandmother. And it was just tapping into all kinds of different levels. But in what we did is we had a little balloon inflate out of the package while we were inflating the big one behind the sheets. But in order to get it up, we had to inflate it down. And that's when we're like, wait a minute, this looks like a world. And that we never would have noted. And I didn't even think of that. That's what's so cool about these cycles and this kind of process is it opens up the whole creative process to everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Anybody, whether they're an actor or the person who comes by cleaning every day at 5, we'll be like, come check this out, to see how this is going. And so it's really about being open to those kinds of possibilities as much as possible and discovering those things. Yeah. So in the end, it's really just opening that door more than being extra special creative. If that makes sense.
Yeah, just leaving yourself open to use and take advantage and celebrate whatever happens to be happening in the space.
Yeah, and always just like aware of things, So this other project we'll look at a clip from that I just did in Spain that was shut down whenever, March 6th.
Yeah.
Called Anthropoceno, which means the Anthropocene. And I'm working on an English version of the script, probably going to be called The Chronicles from the Early Part of This Century. Something like that. Because Anthropocene is not a nice word in English, but Antropoceno in Spanish is really nice.
Yeah.
But for anyone who doesn't know, the Anthropocene is the proposed geological period that we're in now, where humans have affected the Earth. And it's not like official, but it's a widely known idea that we're no longer in the Holocene, but we're in the Anthropocene. And so this theater in Madrid, the Abadia, which is very similar to New York Theater Workshop in many ways.
In terms of the space of the theater? Or
yeah, they have 2 spaces, but they bring in all kinds of different artists.
Cool.
So the aesthetics of their shows are not always the same because it depends on the artist they're bringing in. It has a very community feel, but it's quite important. It's really cool. And the actual theater where we did the show is an old church. Huge ceilings, it's all black, but it's very wide, not very deep space. And so I was invited to do a show based on the idea of what kind of world are we leaving for our children, right? Which is an impossible topic. And so in researching that, we came up with the idea of the Anthropoceno. And
did they approach you with that idea, or you approached them?
Yeah, a show I had directed based on a graphic novel by Sean Tan, The Arrival, about immigration, which is a wordless show with these moving blocks, played at a festival they had.
Gotcha.
And the artistic director at the time, Jose Luis, who's a very, very well-respected actor, who just retired because he's 80, leaned over and said, do you want to work with us? I didn't understand everything, but it doesn't matter, So I was on my way to do 17 Borders, I think in Moscow, and had an 8-hour layover in Madrid a year and a half ago. And met with them again, and that's when they proposed this idea. And I said, just give me a script because, it's too hard to invent brand new things. It's a script, you get your score, you're done, They're like, no, you make something up. So they gave me, a year ago, 8 actors, and I had to choose 4 after a 2-week workshop. I ended up choosing 3 and a dancer I had seen at a performance. And by accident, she had this candle and it landed on me and it almost caught my leg on fire and the theater. And then after the show, I was talking to the other actors because it's La Furia de Baus. La Furia de Baus is a cool company from Barcelona. And I knew some of them. And then I saw her again and I said, oh, you're the one who almost lit me on fire. And then we became Facebook friends, and then I saw her dances on her Facebook video. I was like, oh my God, she's incredible. And she's very young. And so during these workshops, this was in June. So I'm in Madrid in June doing workshops basically about the end of the world or the idea of the Anthropocene. Very heavy, very depressing. We're reading that guy, what's his name? David Wallace Wells, The Uninhabitable Earth. If you have not read it, don't read it because you'll jump out of it. Really, really dark stuff. And at that point, I realized I really wanted Greta Thunberg in the show. So wait, do we have that photograph, you guys? Did we test that?
Yeah, we should have the photograph coming up. Give us 1 second.
So this was in June. I had this idea, like we have to put Greta Thunberg in the show, but like a symbol, almost as dance or something. So that's when I got this idea to cast Katya as Greta. And in June of 2019, she was really well known, Greta, but she was not nearly as famous as she is now, not even half.
Sure.
So that was great because by the time we started rehearsals in September and then in December and January, we didn't need her to talk at all. We just had to show Greta. So basically, the idea is this is the first clay crappy model I made of the set. The other pieces got broke, but the idea is it would be on their stage, just a round half dome of wood painted in matte black, just like a stage. But that's the earth. And all the characters would come out of different windows in the earth, but we wanted to see inside. So we built a geodesic kind of Buckminster Fuller style dome that reveals the scenes on the inside and can hide all the different scene elements and stuff. So here, throw that picture up if you guys have it. Yeah.
Right.
So this is probably from rehearsal.
Great. 1 sec.
First into the play. So when the audience enters the theater, yeah, basically that dome, there's nothing on it, right? There's no pre-show music. Then when the show starts, we start this really ridiculous TED remix that our composer made. It's up like a TED Talk, and all these flashing lights and smoke comes out of that center hole there. And then it says TED Stockholm 2018, because that's when Greta did her first kind of famous speech. And very slowly, Katya there, she's originally from Ukraine, ascends on the top of the dome. And she just looks at all the audience. It takes way too long, but it's really amazing because we're building the music more and more and more. And then she just disappears in the smoke. And we start the show. And then she only comes back again at the end. But because everyone at this point knows who she is, she's basically like a very straight from everyday Cassandra character.
Yeah.
Giving a huge warning. And so then the show goes on to be about, so this was created in combination with the actors and the dancers, and even an example here of the set design and writing content. It's incredible.
How much time did you have to build this play with these performers, Thaddeus?
Well, I did the 2-week workshop with 8 actors.
Okay.
Of which I only used 3, so that a lot of that material couldn't be used, you know what I mean? Because it's so different. Then I had 3 days in September, passing through Madrid with the final group of 4.
Yep.
And then we started in January, and we opened in mid-February, so very little time, actually.
Yeah, how much time does it normally take you to build a piece?
Well, it depends. You know, usually you do it in 2 or 3 week stints, but over like a year or a year and a half. It depends on the scale. You know, Ian and I are working on the inflatable space still, but and we've already done that in Edinburgh. Thank God we did it last year.
Yeah.
But that's not, you know what I mean? We weren't totally ready, but it's much better we did it not ready.
Yeah.
But anyway, with this, I'll show you guys another video, and I'll talk over the video because it's kind of clear. So we can go to the Anthropoceno video clip.
Great. Taylor's getting it for us.
So we're going to see Anna, the main character, who, because the themes are so big, we had to make a very simple story. So she's a writer, and she wrote a book called Our Death in the Anthropocene. And it's like the uninhabitable earth. It is very depressing. And she's about to go to a book signing for the book. You know, it's all very normal stuff here. But then she realizes in the morning, while she's getting ready to do her lecture in her bathroom, which is just out of one tiny little window here, that she has an app called Siri, which comes to life in the year 2087 towards the end of the play. To Cachito, sung by Nat King Cole. We don't have time to watch that clip, but anyway, in this one, she realizes she's probably pregnant, right? So now this is 3 months later, even though the show's only an hour and a half, and she's going to the doctor, the gynecologist, to get the sonogram. I'm so used to that in Spanish, ecografía, but the sonogram, you know, the ultrasound. So Anna's there, she's really preoccupied because she just wrote this book and spent the last few years writing about how there is no future and she's pregnant. So her conflict is that simple.
Sure.
And she's not one to want to not have the baby, you know what I mean? We decided not to bring up an abortion issue in the play. We just let that be a symbol of life and the future. Yeah. And because there you can see the set is now open. And that's on a simple track that the actors themselves move whenever they want.
And was this
what's that?
Did you do the set for this as well, as you often do?
Yeah. I mean, but this is my version. So, you know, we had this guy Emilio do the real version, who's an incredible engineer and theatrical architect. So, is there more volume on this clip, guys? Oh, here it comes. Yeah, it's just weird. It's weird atmospheric music. I met a 25-year-old DJ dancer who did all the music. But this is a scene where, you know, you're doing a whole doctor scene, but we didn't need any dialogue because it's very clear she's just, you know, putting some cream on her belly and checking the belly.
Yeah.
And then this is obviously how the set works. And that's just spun by an actor. And then this, of course, is what they're seeing on the monitor in front of them. The actual ultrasound. And that's really nice. It's done with two projectors that are blended, so it's mapped perfectly across the dome. And then, this is pretty dark, but this is Katya, the dancer who's playing Greta, and there's just a center light going through the hole. And she's basically, this is based on an improv she did. The other actress did an improv of planting a seed. And then right after that, I was like, well, Katya, why didn't you, Katya came up with this. She did an improv of dancing, like growing as a seed. So I was like, well, why don't we do that right after we see the video of the ultrasound? So that's, you know, what's inside of the main character. But Eleni, our completely crazy Greek costume designer, put a gas mask on her. Look at that, she's wearing a gas mask. She's totally naked, but she's in a gas mask. You know, and I mean, Katya's just an incredible performer. So she's, you know, really doing these amazing contortions with her body. But with this horrible gas mask on, this was done in February, we opened. And the idea of the mask is not only environmental things, but viral things that we're getting from all this literature we're reading. And of course, the thing had already started in China at that point. Yeah. But it was not a global thing. It was nowhere near Spain. I mean.
Yeah.
So then, if you see, for example, when Katya goes back like that, that's given a light cue to do it one side. This is all lit by two lights. One side light that's going through a triangle that's in the set, right? And this is I love this kind of thing. We're using the set as a light shutter.
Sure.
So Anna's now back at home in her robe, and she's kind of imagining this, of what's in her belly. And she shuts the light by moving the set on, you know, the baby's hand. So that's that clip.
It's beautiful.
Well, then it gets really crazy. There's a whole airport sequence that's really anthropocenico with all this airline security and McDonald's bags being thrown at everybody and duty free. And there's a crazy sequence where Anna's trying to get to the airport. She calls an Uber. She just visited her mom who's going blind. The young girl comes in and the mom gives her glasses, kind of like the mom dies, the grandma. And the young girl in these huge thick glasses takes the plants from her planter and starts doing this buto thing where she starts kind of growing from the seed now to a tree. While the Uber people are lost because the cell phones aren't working, because the app is personified in watching the tree grow and not paying attention to the Uber call, the Siri, right? Because the Siri character was the grandma. It was really crazy. But anyway, the set turns and then the tree, we do a trick where we grow a real tree out of the top of the set. While this woman's trying to find a taxi on the corner because the internet got all messed up. It's that kind of play.
It's great. It sounds like a Thaddeus Phillips Lucidity and Suitcase International production. When we started emailing, you were talking about a project that was in its very nascence.
Well, exactly. So what happened was, so I'm in Spain in February, and then in let's see what happened. Right before we opened, we were going to do 17 Borders in Milan. Yeah,
sure.
Right. So in January, we have a tour in August of Inflatable Space in China, and again in October. And I'm starting to get worried about that in January.
Yep.
I go to Milan for this press conference for 17 Borders. Just went for the day. It was really weird, but they really wanted to do it to really promote the show.
Sure.
And when I landed there, this would have been February 6th or something.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The Italians, nothing had broken out yet. But they still did the temperature check on my forehead when I landed. I was like, that was weird. And then the artistic director of that theater, this crazy guy, Gian Mario, was like, yeah, they're quarantining people 2 weeks, if they have fever. I'm like, you should have told me that. I would have been calm at all.
Yeah, right.
Then we opened the show on the weekend. Then I came back February 10th to Bogota. When I landed, the Italians had already canceled the early March showings of, it was a week later. It was mid-February, more like the 20th, of 17 Borders. They're like, this thing is weird. We're not selling tickets. We think it's going to get all shut down, so we're going to do it later, right? And then, blah, blah, blah. I saw you guys closed, Revolution Theater Festival in Albuquerque closed, my friends in Denver closed. And then I saw we were supposed to do Inflatable Space in New Jersey in April, which seems like years ago now. That was delayed. We're supposed to do a Billion Nights on Earth in Hong Kong in July. That's going to be the year. And the only thing that's still on right now is the China thing, which is really hysterical. But we think that'll be delayed. But in doing that, I started looking at all these pictures and I drew them. I don't know if you really see them.
Yeah.
But of all the theaters, Milan, New York, Manitou Springs, Sibiu, that festival was shut down. Morristown, Santiago, Chile, Hong Kong, Prague, all the ghost lights in all the theaters, right?
Yeah.
And I had drawn this hanging light in thinking about a new piece, unrelated to all of that. But I realized if you just flip it, you have this kind of ghost light thing. So I drew out this, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
And at the same time, my son, who's 7 and he's bilingual, he's watching a lot of Chavo de Ocho and Chapulín Colorado. Do you know that show?
I don't.
Some people do, but they make fun of it on South Park and The Simpsons sometimes.
Cool.
When The Simpsons are watching Spanish TV, that's what they're watching.
Gotcha.
But there's this amazing thing where he does this reminiscent thing about theaters. And he goes and finds this old janitor in a closed down theater that's about to get shut down. And, it made me realize, it's so powerful and so cool, the idea of a ghost light. And an empty stage. And so it was just starting from that simple idea. So I started working on, drawing a ghost light. But then I said, well, why doesn't that become like a set?
Uh-huh.
So you have your light bulb, you could put in, I'm not sure the order I should explain this idea in, but I'll tell you. For example, look, if you start with the resources, going back to the RSVP,
Yep.
you ghost light, you got a light bulb, right? Now, you can get any kind of cool light bulb, you can check out different filaments.
Yep.
And so the first thing I do is I start to write down all the symbols, I research them, I read about them, about light bulbs.
Did you know much about light bulbs before?
Did I what?
Did you know much about light bulbs before? I'm thinking, 17 border crossings had lots of
So does red eye.
light bulbs.
Yeah, but I mean, this is so different when it's just one
Yep.
on an empty stage, right?
Yep.
And you have, this idea that it's protection from the first thing is someone not to fall into the orchestra pit, right?
Yep.
It's the only weird magical light on stage. It works in a small space or a big space. But it's also a metaphor, like the filament is so fragile, you could pop it and break it, which is the great metaphor for us. It also could be the sun or the moon.
Yeah.
You got a whole planetary thing. I haven't taken everything out of this object yet.
Yeah.
And obviously that's the thing I rehearse at night. But that's a great object. Another one I found, and I don't know why, but I like this little matchbook thing here.
Mm.
Matches are like fire. And this is from a wonderful Czech puppetry book I had.
Mm.
But look at this you got your little bug critter.
Yeah.
And so that's an object. So basically, I picked out a random number to help organize a series of sequences. So I picked out the number 9. It's right before 10, right before a new cycle begins.
Sure.
I don't know if 9 or 5 is better, but I'm going with 9 for now. So I just picked out a few things that I'll start to work with and improvise with. This is a fantastic idea. I think it's very complicated, but it's a zoetrope.
Yep. Love a zoetrope.
Yeah, exactly, which could be mounted over the ghost light, which could be taken from the paper. And then I found ways that you can, you could get a thing big enough that the audience could see it. And they also look really beautiful if this is white, spinning this way. But there's something really interesting about that and images and cinema, which leads me to something very crazy, which has nothing to do with anything, but I like it, is this new idea coming out. I've always wanted to do a miniature drive-in on stage, and I don't know why. But if you had cars, not this small, these are my sons, but if they were bigger cars with working headlights, like as big as my head, on stage, and then you could pull a 4x8 flat painted white out of the floor, or a screen. You could have a kind of massive drive-in movie theater. But what was the key now, considering the situation, is drive-in movie theaters are coming back.
Yep.
And they're projecting all these, so there's this really strong, bizarre, I just love the drive-in. So I think that has to be explored as a resource.
Are you imagining this as a piece that has performers in it, or is it an installation, or are you?
I think you have one performer. Right now, I'll work on it because I'm here, I keep delaying how long this is going to last. I was till December, now I'm at least till a year and a half, so plenty of time. Then I discovered this really cool thing of, kind of pop-up scenography where, you could just cut out large pieces of paper or pieces of cardboard and make all kinds of weird, shapes and patterns, these ghost-like things that come out. And then I went back into shadows, and Christian Boltanski, who's a French, Polish, or Hungarian, I think Polish, he does these amazing installations with light, like very little shadow lights on the floor and fans and shadow puppets, and they just oscillate in the gallery. So this, because my studio doesn't get dark, only at night, I made this for you guys. This is kind of the idea of these really messed up, kind of haunting shadow figures. You have like a plane going down, you have like skeletons, bits and pieces of nature. And the idea is, you know, because shadows are so evocative, like in 17 Borders, the volley scene with the coffee cup on that huge screen is so simple with one light. I think it could be really expanded, that kind of vocabulary. And then I'm really into learning. I don't know any card tricks. I need to talk to my friend Jeff Sobel and Steve Chiffo, but I want to learn a trick or two. And there's a lot of cool symbols and cards and stuff. So that's a resource. And then I used to do this, Aaron. This is an American style of dancing.
Sure, yes, the tap.
And I want to get back into it. My grandmother danced with Donald O'Connor on the vaudeville circuit. And he once nailed her shoes to the floor. So when she went to go get in them, she like fell over. But I was playing with a ghost light at night and tapping with these just with my hands under the light, not on my feet. And it was really cool because it's about the things that aren't there.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be there. So that's a resource. And then, so basically I picked 9. So then if you have 9 cards of your teams, and it has to be ghost lights because it's not just one ghost light, it's all the closed speakers. So basically, look, you got your little matchbook and your zoetrope, your ghost light resource, the pop-up cutouts. Wait, over here.
Yeah.
I'm reverse. You can see it.
We see it.
The drive-in. Then there's a thing called the yards over here. The yards I didn't mention is there's the boneyard, which is all the neon lights in Vegas that are no longer in use, are now in like a huge parking lot. You can go look at them. And they're all stacked up, and some of them work. They plug them back in. And then there's this amazing plane graveyard in Arizona, where all the old planes are just lined up parked. Like thousands. You should Google that up. Look at it on Google Earth. It's crazy. Commercial aircraft, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Wow.
And then, of course, graveyards. So there's something in that, and that's linking to the model miniatures of the drive-in. And then we got the playing cards.
Yeah.
And then the shadow box is kind of the Christian Boltanski kind of idea. And then I just made up one because I didn't have 9. It's called the dark, you know, and playing with the absolute dark. And that leads to the basic resource which I need to build, which is that card, which I lost, of the set. Yeah, here. Which would be, this is what I'm going to slowly build because it's materials I have around the house and in the studio, is put a microphone here, contact mic, pickup mic, some fans in the base, a little video projector. I have a really old little one, because that's where you could project out the drive-in movie. And then these metal sticks that could come out and hold all the weird shadow puppets. And then a base for the zoetrope. So basically what to get the process going is I'll build this. Yeah. And slowly start to work on the ideas and try to link it into some kind of story.
Thank you. That, I feel like there's so much there, and it's exciting to think about how it will shape itself, right? It won't shape itself, how you will shape it. I wonder if there are folks who have questions, feel free to write in or chime in. I'm curious, Thaddeus, if you could talk a little bit about your start, your early, how did you come to develop this way of working?
Well, it's very interesting. I was doing high school musicals like everybody. And my high school in Denver was probably built in 1925 or something. The theater was really cool. And the backstage had these wonderful balcony, tech areas to bring in the fly stuff.
Sure.
And I always thought they were beautiful, the railings and the balcony there, and very theatrical. And then the weird little stage door light above the office of the crazy, crazy drama teacher, Mr. Van Epps, who would always smoke cigars in there. And then when I went to college, so, I'm doing musicals and stuff.
What musicals did you do?
Oh, How to Succeed. I was the guy, the Pierre Punk Fitch guy,
Oh, sure. I would watch that production.
That was fun, yeah. Now there you are, and yes, there's that face. That whole thing in the mirror, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I just saw a good friend of mine who played the chairman of the board, and we did the whole dance together.
Amazing.
But then in college, I got exposed to Patrick Keeley, who's a great friend of mine now. He's a director, and Bruno Santini, a designer. They did A Midsummer Night's Dream in Peat Moss with my college, and they sat us down and they said, in 1970, whatever, Peter Brook did a production of Midsummer Night's Dream that changed theater. We are now going to do something better. That's how they started the first rehearsal. It was so cool. And they had this old piano and stuff. And I was even thinking about that in this dark card with the puck speech. If we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear this week, and idle theme is no more yielding than but a dream. So there's something really nice about that speech in this Ghost Lights context. But anyway, that exposed me to a whole 70s and European style theater. And then there was another guy named Encho Avramov, who's from Bulgaria, who studied at DAMU, the Theater Academy in Prague. And he actually ended up sending me there. And that's where I really got into this style of transformative design, action design, design that moves with sets. That would have been 1994. I was living in Prague. And then I got the opportunity to work with Robert Lepage because I was an intern with him, just by really being like, hey, I really want to learn. And he let me intern on his Hamlet. And then we became friends, and he put me in Geometry Miracles, where I did more kind of tap dancing as Herbert Johnson, of Johnson's Wax. And then I started doing my own puppet shows, because back in the mid-90s, there was the Jim Henson Puppet Festival, International Puppet Festival.
Yeah.
And that was just incredible. And I would see Fred Churchak and all kinds of early Basil Twist shows. And so I was, we had no money, no nothing. So I just started making a King Lear out of a little suitcase, from the Goodwill, and these scarves and shoes and stuff. So we did a solo version of King Lear in a cafe, and then put that on the street and started touring that around, and then did one of the Tempest. Very much inspired by those works I saw at the Henson Festival. And then just, kept building and developing from there. Yeah.
Cool. And so there's a process related question about, and I think, it's, as you said, as you started with this RSVP cycles, I think there's not like a one always comes before the other, but you are often thinking in images before you're thinking in story, or how do you balance those two imperatives that I think are both really central and both so beautifully rendered in your work?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, stories usually last, which can often be a problem. And that's where I'll try to find good collaborators to help with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times it'll be an image, so I'll be collecting a lot of images that I see, grabbing screenshots, taking photos of strange things, if I see something in the film. And then sometimes stories, there's a story I always wanted to do in 17 Borders, but it just didn't fit. Yeah. But I had a tiny little newspaper story about an Iraqi cab driver who drove from Jordan, or a Jordanian cab driver, who drove to Iraq, and he was the first person killed in our bombing of Iraq, this cab driver, who wasn't even supposed to be there, you know what I mean? And I was like, that is such a weird, and it was only one line from New York Times, probably from 2003, 2004. So a lot of times it's about, like, for example, the light bulb. So, I just had the light bulb, but maybe I can't figure out why I have it yet. But I drew it and I kept it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So in a way, it's really just about being open. And yeah, sometimes it can just be an image, and sometimes it can be a small story, or, like a line from Midsummer Night's Dream. But I think they're all equally viable. Like Eleni, the Greek costume designer, on Anthropoceno, was like, she needs to be wearing a gas mask. And I'm like, that is too messed up. We're not going to put her is this beautiful little, seed growing in our main character in a gas mask. And she says, you have to do it. So I didn't even have a choice, right? So, we put her in the mask. But it also helps identify her because you meet her as the great-great-granddaughter in the year 2087, towards the end of the play, wearing a mask like that. And she goes into her house, which is now like a dome, which is safe from viral germs and environmental things. And her app can recharge her. Her app can, play music, her mom's favorite song, all kinds of strange things. So it's kind of like a very negative and very positive future that was developed, but again, by taking things from all angles and giving it in a way each the equal weight.
Yeah.
It's like you can make a poster for a play first, and a lot of times this happens when you're doing original creation. The producers make the poster first, like the polar eagle. I don't have that hair. It's this balloon with a gnome and a penguin puppet. Like a gnome and a penguin are there with the girl, and that's the poster. And I'm like, I asked the producers and the artistic director Christian, I was like, what's the penguin and the gnome? Right? Well, they'll be like her puppets. I'm like, why is there a gnome? He's like, we gotta have a gnome. You know what I mean? Like, so we had Stephen DeFala, who did the set for the object lesson at home. He made this beautiful gnome puppet to look like wood, and then this beautiful penguin, and sent them over to Sweden. And now they're in the show, but this is because they're in the poster.
That's amazing. There's a question about how you think about your audience, and where do you want to leave? Do you want to leave them with a deeper understanding? Do you want to leave them with a provocation? Do you have a particular impulse towards what the audience takes away from the work, or are you open to a range of impulses?
That's a great question. Because I usually have very strong opinions about things. Yeah. But in a way, I try not to put strong didactic opinions in a show, but through stories. And this was very interesting with 17 Borders, as you know very well. Yeah. Because we're talking about everything in that show. We are talking about Mexico. We're talking about my white privilege. I'm saying, why can my son play on the beach? Yeah. And this girl from Syria has to almost drown in a boat. Yeah. But if I don't say it exactly like that, people are like, well, what are you saying? So, but then if I say it like that, half the people are like, why are you preaching to us? Yep. I mean? Yes, I do. For me personally, it's really great that, the thing with Greta, we send Greta Thunberg on the top of the world and then drop her. And then she's dancing in this yellow thing at the end. It's really crazy. And these nuclear bomb lights keep blowing her up. Mm-hmm. In this really beautiful, explosive dance at the end with this kind of Amazonian music. Is really just to throw the idea out there and put the emotion behind the idea, but without the idea behind the idea, if that makes sense, or the intuition behind the idea. So it will reach the audience, hopefully in a deeper level or a different level than slowly through the intellect. I haven't really thought that through, but that's kind of the idea of it. Because I'm also very interested in communicating with the audience, so the ideas aren't that weird or abstract either. Right. For the most part, it makes sense. What you're seeing, it's not like, what is that? Yeah. Well, you have also a way, you are a sponge in the best sense of the word, and that you are you take things from everywhere and you synthesize them in ways that are simple and elegant, but also deep, but also have a great deal of depth to them. That's the goal. I always respond to, and I feel like always comes through in your work. Is there we're coming to the end of the hour. Is there anything and there are a lot of people who are writing in, thanking you for the insight into your process and for your no, that's the other thing here. This is really helpful for me because you see, the trick is, even with the Anthropoceno, I had to do this conference at the New Haven Festival of Arts and Ideas. Yep. For this, it was so random. It's not even interesting, but the point is I had to do a conference. And I did a speech on the Anthropoceno, not really knowing anything about it. Yeah. So that weird event was the launching pad for the way we started working with the actors. Yeah. Of how we're going to talk about this. And so the same thing with this is that, I work in an organized way, but I mean, this I made for this event today, you know what I mean? But now I have this really nice thing, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a two-way street in terms of helping focus, you know, a creative process that I have going on here, or we have going on here, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm seeing if there's any of these comments. You know, somebody says, thank you, this is dangerously freeing. My main idea is to be open to your creativity. You know, lots of really wonderful, wonderful thoughts and appreciation. And I am so grateful for you taking the time to being with us.
Yeah, no, I love it. And those, you got those cool plants. It looks like you're even at the workshop, but you're probably not.
It's true. I will say not this one, but I do have many plants that have their origins at the workshop. Alan Schreier has, over the years, gifted me papyrus, has jade, many things that are continue to move on and bring at least me joy, and now you joy. I want to take, before we wrap up, I want to take a minute to plug a couple of upcoming events, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What else do we have coming up? On Monday, we are so excited. We have Elizabeth Marvel, who is teaching a masterclass on acting classic text. Next Wednesday, we are super excited to have Claire Warden and Denise Divya Johnson, who are two intimacy directors who worked with us on Slave Play, but are working all over the world in multiple media. So we cannot wait to hear from them. And next Friday, we're doing a class, we're doing a workshop on teaching in trauma-informed pedagogy with Alex Santiago Herrao, our education director and our education team. The full list of upcoming programming is available on our website. As I said at the beginning, this fireside chat and all of our virtual programming is free and open to the entire New York Theater Workshop community, wherever you may find yourself in the world. The artists who contribute are being compensated, and we're able to continue to pay our entire staff at this time. If you're in the position to support the work, $25, $10, $5, everything will make a difference to helping us stay in community with you throughout this crisis and beyond. And there's a short survey that we would love for you to fill out. We love to hear what we're doing well, what we could be doing better, what you want to be seeing, and what you're leaving the conversation thinking about. So thank you for being with us. Thaddeus, thank you for being with us and sharing yourself with us.
Thanks, it was great, man.
And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Until then, please be healthy, be safe, take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.